Welcome, history buffs. Listen, as a football historian, I am absolutely thrilled to guide you through this explainer. Today, we're tracing the incredible evolution of football. We're going to look at exactly how this sport morphed from what was essentially a muddy, lawless brawl into the highly regulated, mathematically precise modern spectacle we all know and love today. We are tracking down the breaking points, those exact matches and pivotal moments where the beautiful game literally had to adapt or die. Okay, so let's dive into this early era. Because to the modern fan, the sheer physical brutality of early football feels almost surreal. The Daily Express actually described international matches in 1962 as wrestling and warfare. I mean, wrestling and warfare? Just imagine a pitch governed by raw instincts, where simply surviving the 90 minutes was just as important as scoring a goal. Think about the incredible contrast here. We're talking about a time of roaming goalkeepers who could just casually handle the ball at midfield, cynical fouls from behind that went completely unpunished, and absolutely zero tactical substitutions. If a guy got injured, well, your team just played with a man down. Tough luck. Now, compare that to the highly structured, fluid chess match we watch today. Getting from that chaotic battlefield to the modern game? Yeah, that took decades of serious growing pains. So our timeline today maps out this exact chronological evolution. We'll start with the birth of core rules around 1891, move right through the monumental tactical shifts of 1953, hit the absolute peak of pitch violence in 1962, witness the geometric revolution of total football in the 70s, and finally land in the modern era, defined heavily by the 1995 Bosman ruling. Section 1. The Wild West of Football. Let's start our historical journey in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. This era was the true Wild West. If you wanted to stop a goal, you just crowded the line or hacked the player. The desperate need for rules was brilliantly highlighted in an 1891 FA Cup quarterfinal between Stoke City and Notts County. A Notts County defender literally caught the ball on the goal line to stop a guaranteed shot, and the punishment? Just an indirect free kick, which Notts County easily blocked by packing their entire team on the line. It was ridiculous. This exposed a massive flaw, forcing the invention of the uncontested 12-yard penalty kick just to restore some basic justice. Oh, and that very same year, engineer John Alexander Brodie introduced goal nets, finally ending the chaotic guesswork of whether a ball actually went between the posts. Another huge piece of the structural puzzle fell into place a bit later, in 1912. Before this rule change, goalkeepers were basically like rogue sweepers. They'd roam all the way up to midfield, scooping up the ball with their hands and stifling attacks before they even started. Restricting them to the penalty area finally birthed modern defensive lines. It gave attackers the freedom to try through balls without some goalie casually erasing their effort 30 yards from the net. Section 2. The Match of the Century. Moving into the mid-century, raw physicality just wasn't cutting it anymore. The game was evolving fast, leading to a huge tactical awakening at Wembley Stadium in November 1953. This quote from Sir Bobby Robson perfectly captures the sheer shock of the English establishment. England had literally never been beaten by a foreign team at Wembley. They genuinely thought they were the unquestioned masters of the sport. But when the Hungarian team, the mighty Magyars, showed up, Robson said their tactical brilliance made them look like men from Mars. They completely shattered the illusion of English superiority. The formations really tell the story here. England used their traditional WM formation. It was rigid, deeply physical, and frankly, deeply predictable. Hungary, coached by Gustav Seibes, rolled out a revolutionary 3-2-3-2 setup. They used a deep-lying playmaker and a withdrawn center forward, named Nandor Hidakudi, who basically just pulled England's static defenders completely out of position all day. Hungary absolutely demolished England's outdated tactics 6-3. It was proof that intelligent, fluid positioning could effortlessly dismantle brute force. And nothing symbolizes this transition better than Ferenc Puskás's famous drag-back for Hungary's third goal. As legendary English captain Billy Wright lunged in for a heavy physical tackle, Puskás simply dragged the ball back with the sole of his boot. Wright just went sliding right past him, chasing empty space, and Puskás calmly scored. I mean, it's the ultimate historical symbol of technique triumphing over tradition. Section 3. The Battle of Santiago. But listen, progress is rarely a straight line, right? As tactics got smarter and more dangerous, so did the cynical, violent fouls used to stop them. Teams figured out that if you couldn't outthink the opposition, you could always just kick them off the park. And this all culminated in a global disgrace at the 1962 World Cup. They call it the Battle of Santiago. This group stage match between hosts Chile and Italy erupted into pure toxicity. It was so violently out of control that armed carabineros, the local police, had to intervene on the pitch 4 separate times. Punches were thrown, 2 Italians were sent off, and a massive language barrier meant the English referee couldn't even communicate his decisions clearly to the furious players. But from that terrifying chaos, a brilliant innovation was born. That English referee was a man named Ken Aston. Driving home later, totally traumatized by the violence and the language barrier he'd faced, he stopped at a traffic light, and it hit him, the universal language of the lights, yellow for caution, red for stop. He used this inspiration to invent the universal red and yellow penalty cards. They debuted at the 1970 World Cup, and this finally gave football a standardized, visual language for discipline, fundamentally organizing the modern game. Section 4. Tactics and Total Football. Entering the 1970s, with a proper disciplinary system in place, football changed again. It transitioned from merely surviving a match physically to mathematically outthinking the opponent. You can see this shift so clearly by comparing World Cup finals 20 years apart. West Germany's 1954 Miracle of Bern win over Hungary relied heavily on incredible physical endurance and raw grit. But fast forward to the 1974 finals, and we see the Dutch displaying total football. Orchestrated by Rinus Michels and Johan Cruyff, this system featured fluid, interchangeable positions that literally revolutionized the sport's geometry. It was no longer about out-muscling the other team, it was about out-spacing them. So, the crucial takeaway here is that right alongside this tactical awakening, the rules caught up to support it. At the 1970 World Cup, which by the way was the very first broadcast globally in vibrant color, a quiet revolution occurred. Substitutes were finally permitted for tactical reasons, not just for severe medical injuries. This completely altered the manager's role. The substitute bench transformed from a triage center into a live tactical weapon. Managers could actually change formations or inject fresh legs right on the fly. Section 5. Birth of the Modern Game. As the sports grew into a massive, color-televised commercial behemoth, everything off the pitch had to catch up. Stadium architecture, legalities, broadcast demands, it all needed an update. But sadly, sometimes change only comes through unimaginable tragedy. In 1985, during the European Cup final between Liverpool and Juventus at the Heysel Stadium in Brussels, terrible crowd crushes and structural collapse led to the devastating loss of 39 lives. This horrific event forced a very necessary global reckoning. It led directly to sweeping safety reforms, the total eradication of dangerous crumbling standing terraces, the introduction of all-seater stadiums, and a fundamental redefinition of fan safety and culture globally. Now, on the commercial side of things, the visual identity of the game was rapidly being sanitized for global consumption. Driven by FIFA's growing commercial partnerships, the 1982 World Cup quietly removed localized, distinctively shaped goal nets, like those famous curved ones they used to have at the Santiago Bernabeu. They replaced all of them with standardized, shallow box nets. Why? Simply to create a uniform, unobtrusive backdrop for multinational TV advertisers. The game was officially a globally packaged product. And because the game was now premium global entertainment, lawmakers had to protect the entertainers. Defenders had perfected the professional foul, cynically hacking down a breakaway striker just to concede a free kick instead of a guaranteed goal. To eradicate this, the DOGSO rule was introduced in 1990. Denying an obvious goal-scoring opportunity with a foul now resulted in an instant red card. It flipped the risk-reward equation overnight. Attackers finally had the freedom to shine without being ruthlessly chopped down. The final major piece of the modern puzzle actually happened in a courtroom. The 1995 Bosman ruling, brought forward by a Belgian player named Jean-Marc Bosman, completely shifted the balance of power from the clubs to the players. It allowed out-of-contract players within the EU to move freely without a transfer fee, and it struck down strict quotas on foreign players. This unleashed the modern era of intense globalization. Suddenly, dressing rooms became totally international, and star players gained unprecedented leverage over their own careers. Which brings us right to the tactical present. Born from the unprecedented schedule crisis of the 2020 global pandemic, the temporary rule allowing 5 substitutions became permanent. And wow, has this rewired the tempo of modern matches? Think about it. Managers can now replace half their outfield players in a single game. It turns deep squad depth into the ultimate tactical weapon. High-intensity pressing systems, like Jurgen Klopp's famous gegenpressing, can now realistically be sustained at a sprint for a full 90 minutes. So from literally catching the ball on the goal line to five-man tactical substitutions, football has always evolved when the cost of standing still becomes too high. But what comes next? Will AI systems fully control all officiating to eliminate human error? Or are rolling, limitless substitutions the next necessary tactical frontier we need just to maintain the breakneck physical pace of the modern game? Whatever happens, history tells us for sure that the beautiful game will never stop changing. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes on the pitch.